In the last video, we started talking about arrays. Now, let's look at this line here. What I'm doing is I'm creating a variable called numbers. This variable called numbers is going to be storing an integer array. It's going to be storing actually the reference, the address of an integer array, an array of ints. The part on the right-hand side is creating a new int array that's size 10. So this part on the right side is going to RAM, and it is requesting space that is capable of storing 10 ints. Now, once we have this space in RAM, wherever that space starts, basically the start of the location 0 in the array, wherever that address is in RAM, let's say address 216, that address is stored in the variable numbers. So the variable is actually storing the address of where the array lives. We say that is a reference. So when we talk about address, a memory address, we call it a reference. Now, here, what happens if I say numbers equal to new int 5? Again, here, this new int 5 is going to RAM and requesting space that is big enough to store 5 ints. And it's going to take that address and store it in numbers. So what is going to happen to this address that we just allocated up here that was able to store 10 ints? What's going to happen to that? Well, in Java, there's something called the garbage collection. It runs in the background, and it looks to find any references or any RAM space that's no longer used. Since numbers is no longer pointing to this int array that is size 10, this space is going to be garbage collected. It is no longer referenced. There is no variable in my program that has access to it because numbers is now pointing to a new array, and so it's going to be garbage collected. So this is kind of an image of what's happening. Here we have grades is pointing to an array that is size 10. This one is an array of floats. And then later, when I say grades equal to new float, what I'm doing is now I'm setting this address, the grades variable is storing the address of the new array. And so this old array now has no one pointing to it, so it's going to be garbage collected. It's going to be erased from RAM. Now, another thing that is special about arrays, because they are storing memory addresses, here when I create an int array, and I'm using an initialization list to store 5 numbers in it, so now nums is storing at the address of where this array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lives in RAM. It's storing the address. If I try creating another variable copy and I say it's equal to nums, what I'm actually doing is I'm copying the address. So whatever address was stored in nums is now going to be stored in copy. And now both of my arrays are pointing to the same memory location. Both variables are referring to the same array in RAM. And so if you actually want to copy the contents of the array, you cannot do it like this. This will not create a copy of the array. It's going to just give you the address of that same array, which means if nums makes changes to the array or copy makes changes to the array, the other variable is going to see that change. Let's take a look and try that ourselves. So here we had earlier an array called numbers. Let's just print numbers again to see what it had in it. So in the previous video, we had used numbers and wrote different loops and modified the contents. So while it's running, I'm going to start creating code to copy the contents of the array, or create a copy of numbers. So here, if I look at numbers, the variables that are in it, the numbers that are in it are 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So this is the contents of numbers. If I try saying int square brackets, let's say copy numbers, and I just say equal to numbers. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print copy. So let's just put a system dot out here so we know actually when we're printing what we're printing. So numbers has my numbers array. And let's here print copy. So I'm going to write a for loop. I'm going to say for every int x and copy numbers. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to print them on the same line, so just a little easier. I'm going to print x and a space after it. I'm going to modify this code to do the same. I'm just going to print x and a space after it. Let's just put here a new line. So let's just put a slash. Okay, so let's see when I said copy numbers equal to numbers, what happened? They are both the same. So this is numbers, this is the copy of numbers. Let's call it copy numbers. Now what happens if I try to change one of them? Okay, so this is not going to create a copy. This just copies memory location. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to numbers of 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So the 80, and I'm going to change it to 200. Okay. And what I'm going to also do is I'm going to go to copy of numbers, and I'm going to go to location 4, which is the last element, and I'm going to set it equal to 500. And then I'm going to print those two arrays again. So I'm just going to copy this code that prints the two contents of the arrays again. So we don't want to create a copy, we just want to print it. And let's just say now has, so you see that this is the new one. And we're going to do the same for numbers. Let's see what happens. So copy of numbers used to have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And after, so those are the two lines from before. This is numbers and copy numbers. Now, after I made the change and I look at numbers, it has 200 and 500 in the last locations. So the change I made to numbers is seen, but also the change that I made to copy numbers is seen. And it's seen in the numbers array and it's seen in the copy numbers array. Both of them have the change, the 200, 500. Why? It is because both variables are pointing to the same memory location in RAM. Now, what if I really wanted to create a real copy? So create a real copy of numbers. So here, what I have to do, so let's call it real copy, equal to new int array. So I have to create new memory location. So if I want to create a copy, I have to go to RAM and create a new memory location for my new array that I'm going to copy things into it. How do I know the length of the array? Well, I can go to numbers and say numbers, what is your length? So whatever the length of numbers is, I'm going to create a copy of it. So now I have, if numbers had 5 elements, now my real copy is also going to have 5 elements. It has space for 5 elements. And then I need to copy every single element. So I'm going to write a for loop int I equals 0. I'm going to have to copy every single element. And I'm going to go until I hit numbers.length. I++. And I'm going to go to real copy, location I, and say I want you to be whatever was at numbers, location I. So I'm going to location 0 and saying copy over what's at location 0. Location 1, copy over what's at location 1. So let's kind of take a look at what we're doing here. So we have numbers, and it has a memory location. So this is, the address, and the numbers are here. Let's say this is location 216. So now numbers stores 216. What I'm doing here is I'm going to create a new array, a new variable, real copy, and I'm saying equal to new int, saying new. So this is going to allocate new RAM location, and it's going to be the same length. So if this is 5, this is also going to be 5. So if this one has length 5, this one is also going to have length 5. And now, whatever this location is, let's say 105, this is the address that's stored in real copy. So now I have 2 arrays in RAM. The first one has numbers in it, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It has some numbers in it. And what I want to do is I want to copy one at a time. So I want to go to location 0 and say, come and copy it. So this becomes 10. and then go to location 1 and copy it over, and go to location 2 and copy it over. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm going to location I in real copy, the second array, and saying, give me, save in me, whatever was that numbers at location I. Now, let's verify that it got copied over. So let's do a print. So we want to print the real copy. So this is real copy. And we want this to be called real copy. Let's verify that the new array has the same contents as the old array. And it does. It has the numbers 20, 40, 60, 200, 500. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try changing numbers here. Okay, so I'm going to say numbers of 0 equal to 900. Okay, let's see if that changes real copy. And when we run it, we find that real copy is not changed. It is still 20. Now, was numbers changed? Yes. If I try to print here numbers, so numbers after changing location I, 0. Let's try printing what's in numbers just to see. Did it really get changed to 900 or we made a mistake? So we find that numbers was changed, but real copy wasn't changed. Why? Because in RAM, they both are living in 2 separate locations. That is why. So when you want to copy arrays, it's not as simple as setting a variable equal to another. You really have to do a copy one by one variable at a time. So you're going to practice doing that in this classwork assignment. You are going to create a class called Homework Grades. So I would start by creating a project and calling it Homework Grades. And this class will store just one array of homework assignment grades. This array is going to be an array of doubles. So you're going to have your class and the instance field that is storing, like when we had students storing, grade and name, this class will store one array of doubles and it's going to be of size 8. You're going to write a constructor for the class that takes the array as input. And what it's going to do, it's going to copy the code, copy the contents of the input array and put it into the instance field array. So you're going to write code that is very similar to the array that I wrote here to copy the contents of the array. That will have to be in your constructor. And then you're going to write some methods. You're going to write a method to calculate the average of all the grades, meaning go through the array, add up all the contents of the array, and divide by 8, because that is the length of the array. And I want you to write me another method that finds me the lowest element in the array. So this is the class, the constructor, and 2 methods. Now in main, in the same file, you will create a double grades array that has these contents, and you will create a homework grades object using this array. And then you're going to call the average method on it and the lowest grade method on it to print the average and the lowest grade. Make sure you print them with 2 digits after the decimal.